Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and I'm doing something that honestly I have not done in quite a while. Is one of these videos on a particular Pokemon, and I figure that I'm only a few days late. Let's get into the Halloween spirit and do something a little bit spooky. So here's Banette, ADV's spookiest Pokemon, and that's not just my opinion, that's the opinion of all of you guys who responded to my poll. 50% of you think that Banette is the scariest out of these four. I mean, I could have also put Gengar or Haunter or Shedinja in here, but I mean, I already did a video on Gengar, so I wanted to see what you guys thought about this, and I'm sorry for all the Dusclops and Misdreavus and Sableye fans who wanted a video on that, and I didn't make this clear what this was going to be about, but I figured this is the only way we were going to get the Banette video because, oh my gosh, this Pokemon sucks. Sorry to say that 1 minute into the video, but yeah, we're going to talk about some of Banette's struggles a little bit. The viability rankings obviously do not have the Pokemon Banette here. If we can find the other ghost types, we see that Gengar is pretty well respected. I think it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th on the tier list. I feel like Gengar goes down every year. Like, people don't respect Gengar as much as they used to. Gengar used to be almost consensus number 2, by the way. Just think about that. But yeah, it's getting dropped a lot and a lot more as the usage of Blissey goes up, as the demand for spikeless offense teams go. Yeah, Gengar's losing a little bit of luster, but it's a good Pokemon, so keep using it. Misdreavus is down there. I think that's 39th. I'm not gonna count it all. And I don't. Am I missing Dusclops? Dusclops would be the only other Pokemon that I think would even appear in the E tier. But no, I don't see it. Yeah, not a lot of love for the other ghost types. We'll talk a little bit about that, but first let's talk about specifically where Banette is, and it's right there between Golduck and Rhydon. That sits at 70th. It's not a great spot to be. Only one respondent ranked it, and it was Gary Oak, and I just checked to see what teams Gary Oak used it on. And the answer was none. Gary Oak just decided, I'll throw Banette in there, I guess. Not even having used the Pokemon, so that's kind of interesting. That's not to say that you can't rank a Pokemon that you don't use, but if you don't build with it and you don't play against it, then it is a little bit questionable, right? But then again, as we'll see maybe at some point when the 2025 viability rankings become public, I think somebody went ahead and ranked 120 Pokemon. So at least when we get down to the real dregs of the tier, we'll have somebody's opinion on it. But that means that Gengar, Dusclops, Misdreavus, and Sableye are all higher rated than Banette is. Thus, as far as all the fully evolved ghost types go, Banette is only higher ranked than Shedinja, who did not get any votes or anything on the viability rankings, which kind of makes sense. Shedinja's got some very, very, very pronounced problems. But yeah, that's not a great look for Banette. Before we get on to the discussion, though, let's ask the comment question for the video. Who's your favorite ghost type Pokemon? For me, if we're going just on the first 3 generations, I think I would say Sableye. He's kind of cool. I kind of like more what he becomes when he gets the Prankster ability, and I like his Mega a lot as well. But if we're talking all time, I think Aegislash is my favorite. It's a ghost sword with a shield. Like, come on, that's sick. That was one of the first Pokemon that I ever played with in competitive, and then it got banned, and I got really sad. So, there you go. So, ghosts are very important because of a mechanic that is referred to as spin blocking. Rapid Spin is the only move in ADV that is able to remove spikes. In later generations, we would get Defog and Mortal Spin and Tidy Up. But as far as ADV goes, Rapid Spin's the only move that exists. The spikes are not removed if Rapid Spin fails, though. And that could be if Rapid Spin misses due to accuracy drops, which is really, really annoying. But also if it hits a Ghost type, and all these are the fully evolved Ghost types, you can make a whole team of 6 out of them. So those of you looking for a mono type, I guess that's your team. Although, honestly, you could probably replace one of these Pokemon with Haunter and still have about as much success, because, man, some of these Pokemon are not really pulling their weight. The Ghosts are immune to normal type moves, which means that Rapid Spin will not be able to hit them, meaning that Rapid Spin will fail, meaning that they will not be able to remove the hazards if using Rapid Spin. They, of course, being your opponent, because we're going to be abusing spikes as a Ghost type. That doesn't necessarily mean that Ghost types only work on spikes teams, but that is one of the added benefits of having a Ghost type on a spike team, so keep that in mind. Misdreavus and Gengar in particular are really solid against opposing spikes teams. The reason being is that they do a good job of maintaining the spikes advantage. So say you have Skarmory or whatever spiker of choice, but Skarmory's usually the most common and the best one. Skarmory gets 3 layers of spikes up. They go to their Starmie to try to spin, and you switch into your Gengar, and, well, you just blank the spin, and they can't really do much. They may try to set up their own spikes, but if they don't have a spin blocker, you might just be able to spin away and deal with them really well. Or if you're using Gengar and Misdreavus in particular, you might not even need to have a spinner. They're immune to ground type moves, i.e. immune to spikes, thanks to the ability Levitate. So you don't really need to have spinning support to make them work. The other Ghost types are grounded, regardless of whether they look like they float or not. So they will be taking spikes damage. In the case of Shedinja, spikes will one-shot it, which is one of the many flaws of Shedinja, but the other 3 still don't necessarily love to take a lot of spikes damage. Now, there are definitely ways around them for the teams that they exist on. For the case of Dusclops and Sableye, that's mostly going to be pairing it with a spinner like Claydol. For Banette, we'll talk a little bit more about that specifically later. But let's talk about one of the big flaws of Ghost types is the move Pursuit. So Pursuit is a dark type move that deals double damage to a Pokemon that is switching out. And it hits the Pokemon that is switching out, not the Pokemon that's switching in. So unlike pretty much any other attacking move. And it's really, really nasty for the Ghost types who are weak to dark. There are the Pursuit Trappers. These are not the only Pokemon that can run Pursuit, but they're the 3 most common, or the most commonly that you'll see it used. And they also are the most powerful because they get the stab boost. Though I will say Umbreon does not have quite the special attack stat to be super threatening with it, but it's good enough to secure some 2-hit KOs if it so chooses. So all of the Ghost types are pretty not good into that. Well, except for Sableye, who has a secondary dark type that makes it neutral into Pursuit. So it's actually not too bad at taking Pursuit. It also has Recover to heal some of that HP back up. So you can kind of stay in and duel some of these trappers if you so choose. I think you're probably the worst at dueling Houndoom, because Houndoom's got a really strong special attack stat and Fire Blast is going to be doing a lot. But, I mean, you can stay in, kind of, versus Tyranitar and go for Seismic Tosses to try to beat it down, maybe. Although, be careful, because you're going to be taking some crunches, and Sableye tends to want to run physical defense rather than special defense, so, in fact, it probably isn't actually that good at all at dueling the Tyranitar. But Yeah, the rest of these Pokemon do not like to see Pursuit, particularly Shedinja, who will just die. Period. If Shedinja faces down a Pursuit Trapper, it's fucked. Well, okay, that's not necessarily true. If you have a faster Baton Pass, you can get out of there, but that's the only way you can save yourself. So if you see Houndoom as Shedinja, yeah, you lost your Shedinja. I want to note, though, that every ghost is capable of running enough investment to live Tyranitar's pursuit. Well, except for Shedinja, who dies in one hit. So that's not nothing. I will say that Gengar and Banette are the least advantaged at doing this because they have the lower HP and SPDEF stats. I think Banette technically takes it the worst because it's got the lowest SPDEF, but it kind of depends on the investment a little bit. So if you're wanting to have an out versus the most common Pursuit Trapper, which is Tyranitar, then you can kind of do that with all of these Pokemon. Of course, Misdreavus and Dusclops are a little better at doing that because they have higher SPDEF stats. Dusclops does not really have a great HP stat to make up. So I think Misdreavus ends up taking it the best. I'm not sure. Somebody fact check me. But in either case, it's still a really nasty move that you have to watch out and play around. But Banette, its claim to fame is that it's the strongest of all the ghost types. And what I mean by that is that it has the highest attack stat. The next highest attack stat of any ghost type would be Shedinja, who's sitting at base 90, but Banette has a pretty impressive 115. That is the same as, say, like Raikou special attack stat, for example. It's a little bit higher than Snorlax's attack stat, so if you think about how much damage those Pokemon do, Banette is kind of in that ballpark. This gives Banette the strongest Shadow Ball in the format. So, for example, a +1 max attack Snorlax Shadow Ball into Celebi is going to be doing 60% max. But Banette will be doing 62% max, which gives it an almost guaranteed shot to 2-hit KO a defensive Celebi, which is not that bad, actually. Now, Celebi obviously can go for Recover, or it can try to get a Leech Seed off, but say you're up against a Celebi who's very greedy, tries to get the Leech Seed on Banette and misses, well, now you're just going to kill it on the next shot most of the time, unless you, like, min roll twice. So, it's not bad. And you don't even need the curse boost to get there, which is good because Banette, I mean, I don't think Banette actually even gets curse, but if it did, no, I think it does. Let me check myself on that. Ba-bum. I feel like I recall it using the move against me in the in-game. Yes, it does get curse. Unfortunately, it gets the ghost type variant of curse, which deals damage to itself, which is not ideal for what we want to do with Banette. But it's not bad. Oops. There we go. With a fighting move to hit the dark, normal, and steel types, Banette has basically perfect coverage, which is really nice. You would think that a physical attacking ghost type in Generation 3 would be really, really strong because it's so easy to cover Ghost's weaknesses with a fighting type move. And fighting type moves are handed out like candy. Think about how many Pokemon get Focus Punch and Brick Break and well, basically just those two moves, but there's obviously some others like Low Kick and Superpower if you're very lucky to get it, but unfortunately, Banette's not that lucky. It does not get access to any fighting type moves other than HP Fighting. Now, HP Fighting is workable. It's not that much weaker than Brick Break, but I want to show you a big problem with HP Fighting on Banette. So against a 252 HP Tyranitar, which is what most Pursuit Tyranitar are, we're going to be dealing 83% max, which means that we will not OHKO. It also means that we're not even guaranteed to OHKO a Tyranitar after 3 layers of spikes. So that's pretty brutal. But that's a max HP Tyranitar. A low defense investment Tyranitar, 4 HP, which is what most of the offensive variants run. We still don't quite get the kill. We don't even have a roll to get there, which is kind of insane, to be honest. It's kind of an ugly looking stat there. If we had Brick Break, we'd actually have about I think a little bit higher than a 50% chance to one-shot Tyranitar if it has no HP investment. We still don't kill a 252 HP Tyranitar, which kind of sucks. Banette really needed to be a dual fighting type. That would have been really nice for it. And then it would actually be a very strong counter to Pursuit Trappers, because you would resist Pursuit. Well, fighting resist Pursuit, so you'd be neutral to Pursuit, and you'd be doing a lot of damage to all the Dark-type Pursuit Trappers. So that would have been really nice, but unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. Banette is gonna have to settle for not quite getting the kill on Tyranitar, which feels bad. The pace of play. So Banette has access to some really good utility moves, like many of the ghost types do, but some of them don't really fit the pace of most Banette teams, if such teams even exist, which are usually on the offensive side. So I'm sure if I asked you, as the average ADV YouTuber viewer, what Banette team do you know, you probably would say this one that Jimothy Cool uses on some of his latter videos. Now, this team is really cool, but we're not going to use exactly this. We're going to use something that looks a little bit similar, but not quite this one. So what utility moves are we going to use that fit the sort of offensive mold that Banette is going into? Well, let's break it down into 4 different categories. First, let's talk about the preferred utility moves. So we have Will-O-Wisp, Taunt, and Destiny Bond. Will-O-Wisp, of course, is just one of the best moves in the game. Getting a burn on something can be really damaging to it, especially if it's a physical attacker. Banette can find entry points on certain Pokemon, particularly Snorlax, going for a normal type move, and then get the Will-O-Wisp off to like severely cripple the Pokemon. So that's really nice. Now, the problem is Will-O-Wisp is a 75% accurate move, and Banette will die to Shadow Ball if given the opportunity to click it for the Snorlax. So if you miss your Will-O-Wisp, of course. So that's really not good. I don't know if I love a 1 in 4 chance to simply just lose my Pokemon for nothing, but 3 out of 4 times you get that Will-O-Wisp off on the Snorlax, and now Snorlax is in a bind. It has to click rest early, or it has to just accept that it's going to be chipped down by the Will-O-Wisp. It's also really nice for dealing with certain defensive Pokemon that don't want to be taking the chip damage, even if they're special attackers. We kind of think about, for example, Blissey as a Pokemon that doesn't love to take a Will-O-Wisp, because if you follow up with a Taunt, then it's not going to be able to get its soft-boiled off, and it's just taking chip, and will never be able to heal versus a Ghost type with the Will-O-Wisp Taunt combo. This is why you see this very commonly on defensive Gengar sets. And then lastly, we have Destiny Bond. Now, Banette is not super duper fast to get a quick Destiny Bond off, but it is faster than some of the slower paced Pokemon. Some variants of Metagross, Swampert, some variants of Tyranitar as well. So, and especially if you run a lot more speed investment, though I do think that Banette really benefits from having a plus attack nature. But Banette does make some decent use of Destiny Bond in certain situations, and it fits that sort of offensive mold where you can get a trade. If you can get a Will-O-Wisp on one thing and then Destiny Bond die to something else, and you've blocked a spin, then Banette has done a lot of work for you, so that's really good. Some niche moves. We have Rain Dance and Sunny Day to clear weather. It's something that Banette can do. Banette is not really that strapped for its move slots. It really wants Shadow Ball and it really wants HP fighting. Other than that, you can kind of put whatever you want. And if you want a weather clear and you think that Banette is the move slot that is the most free, then you can certainly go for that. Thunderwave is kind of nice, and Banette having access to Will-O-Wisp and Thunderwave, very, very few Pokemon have that. In fact, Banette might be the only one. But I do think it is hard to justify fitting both Will-O-Wisp and Thunderwave on the same set. A lot of the times you want to just be getting the Will-O-Wisp off on everything. But if you want instead to do a little bit more like a para-spam strategy, you're trying to enable a slower wall breaker to win in the endgame, then Thunderwave could work. Imprison is a pretty niche move. You don't see it that commonly on Banette. If you see it at all, you actually see it more so on Dusclops. The idea with Imprison is that you are going to block your opponent from being able to use the same moves as you. And for the ghost types, that's going to be Shadow Ball, and particularly against Snorlax, because if Snorlax most commonly if it's running Shadow Ball, is going to be running a normal type move in conjunction with it, so you can stop Snorlax from being able to hit you at all. You could even go kind of crazy and put Curse on your Pokemon. Dusclops will do this maybe sometimes. Kind of pretty rare. You could do it with Banette as well, but I think that's a little bit overkill. In fact, I would rather have Taunt to stop the Snorlax from being able to rest. And in fact, I think when Dusclops does this, it likes to have Rest as a move, and it stops the Snorlax from being able to use Rest as well. So it's mostly for Snorlax. There are some other Pokemon maybe where you can stop them from Shadow Balling. You can maybe stop a Gengar that is switching in from Will-O-Wisping, although why is Gengar switching into Banette? That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, so I don't know. There's Toxic as well. I mean, you have access to Will-O-Wisp and Thunderwave, which are a lot more, how should I say, there's more sparsely distributed than Toxic is. So if you're wanting Toxic, you should probably look at some of your other Pokemon before you put it on Banette, but Banette can run it. Icy Wind is some decent speed control. I don't know if I would run it over Thunderwave, though, so kind of niche. Skill Swap is kind of interesting. So Banette's ability is Insomnia. That means that it cannot be put to sleep, which makes it decent at switching into Breloom, for example, who is commonly just running Spore and fighting type moves, so it might not even be able to hit Banette at all. So that's nice, but you can skill swap that onto a Pokemon that is using Rest, like Suicune or Snorlax, and stop them from being able to go to sleep. I think that's how it works anyway. Or maybe, this is a little bit of a strange one that just came to my mind. If you have your own sleep setter, like Breloom, and you don't like the Pokemon that they sleep sacked, you could skill swap Insomnia onto them to wake them up, and then try to get a sleep on something else. Now, I believe with skill swap, when the opponent switches, or when your Banette switches, you get your other ability back. So, I mean, they can always just try to sleep sack that Pokemon again, but it gives you another chance to go for, like, say a Focus Punch catching their sleep sack switch in, or you could just go for the Spore again and reset their timer in a sense, but I don't know. That seems very niche. And then Grudge. I have seen somebody use Grudge Banette on ladder before. I think the idea is that you're trying to steal the PP of a Pokemon who is relying on one move to break through something on your team. This is really good into mono Pokemon like Mono Suicune, for example. If you can bait Suicune into killing your Banette with Surf, and that's the only attacking move that Suicune has, then it loses all of its PP. That's what Grudge does. If you die to an attacking move, you steal all of the PP of it, which means that Suicune is no longer really a threat because it can't attack. It can sit there and kind of PP stall if it wants to, but if it's, say, like a last Mon Suicune and you have 2 Mons to switch between, you'll never lose the game because you can just switch back and forth and win. Well, unless there's spikes on the field, then it gets a little complicated, but I mean, it's an idea. The way that I saw them use it actually was to set up for their Suicune, and I think they were trying to bait, say, like a Zapdos to go for Thunderbolt, or a Celebi to go for Giga Drain or something like that, but it ultimately didn't end up mattering because I had Explosion for their last Mon Suicune. So, funny strategy, but it didn't work. Some more or less advisable moves, which, I mean, honestly, some of these niche ones are probably not advised either. I'm being like very, very generous with them, but I'm gonna talk about this one at the top first. Knockoff. You might think, why would I not advise knockoff on Banette? Like, Banette, the very few Pokemon get knockoff, and if Banette is even usable and it's got knockoff, then surely you would want knockoff. But the problem with knockoff on Banette has to do with the pace of play. Knockoff is more for these slower paced balance / stall teams that want passive damage to be the thing that is putting pressure on a Pokemon that you knock off. So, for example, Hariyama, you want to knock off something like a Swampert switching in so that you can let that spikes damage rack up on the Swampert and eventually it's going to die, because you may not have like immediate offensive pressure to deal with something like a Swampert. So that's the idea there. Banette doesn't really fit that pace. I would say if you're going to use knockoff Banette, you should probably look at Hariyama or Armaldo first to see if they can fit that role. We're more so going to want to just be doing damage with Banette, or taunting, or will-o-wisping, or switching out. We don't really have time to sit and knock off and let things go. Now, if you look at some of the sample sets for Banette, knockoff is suggested on at least one of them. You could, I mean, maybe whoever wrote that knows more than I do, which, I mean, well, they were apparently quality control checked. Although for Banette, there's no write-ups to go with the sets, so maybe not. But I would advise against knockoff on Banette for the most part. You're gonna get more value out of Taunt or Will-O-Wisp. Screech, it's pretty inaccurate, and I mean, if you're gonna be lowering the opponent's defense stages by 2, I mean, there are other Pokemon that can do this that don't immediately die in one hit. So I would recommend you try those instead. I guess maybe against like Last Mon Suicune, Last Mon Snorlax ideas, Screech could be nice, but I don't know. Snatch, kind of an interesting move. It steals certain status moves and could be usable on Banette, but I think that it's overall just not a very consistent idea, so I would maybe not recommend that you use Snatch. Disable could be good, but it's 55 accuracy, so I don't know if I would mess with it. Nightmare, I mean, you can abuse a rest Pokemon with it, sort of, but I almost think that the skill swap idea would be a little bit more interesting. Like if you skill swap Insomnia onto Last Mon Suicune, and if it works the way that I am hoping that it does, somebody's gonna have to fact check me, like I've said before. But I think it stops rest from working. So yeah, try that out instead of Nightmare. Mimic, I mean, pretty much every Pokemon gets Mimic. I don't know if Banette makes particularly good use of it. I've used it on Weezing before, but Weezing is often attempted to be used as setup fodder for Skarmory. So you can oftentimes get a Mimic of Spikes. So Weezing can be your Spiker, sort of, if you're using Mimic on it. Whereas Banette, I don't know what exactly you're going to get to Mimic. Maybe you Mimic a Snorlax using Curse, and manage to get the Curse off on it. I don't know, though. And then bad, I mean, Calm Mind, like, no, Banette is not a special attacker. I don't think you're even getting much use out of the special defense because Banette is so frail. So I just would not mess with that. Thief, just use Knockoff instead, and I honestly don't use Knockoff. And then Foresight. I mean, Foresight allows you to hit Pokemon that... that is not what I want. We're going looping this. Foresight allows you to hit Pokemon with moves that they are immune to. I think it only works on normal and ghost types. You don't really want to hit another ghost type with a fighting type move. You would rather just hit them with Shadow Ball. So Foresight's not useful for that. And as for hitting the normal types, well, I mean, I think you actually end up doing more damage just going for HP fighting anyway. So yeah, don't use Foresight. Now, when it comes to the sort of Smogon sets, I said that I don't know what the quality control on them is like, and that is mostly to do with there's no write-up for these, so I have no idea what these benchmarks are for. Well, I have somewhat of an idea what the speed is for, but like the HP, I'm not sure what that is. Maybe if that's just leftover HP, I don't know. But there's a lot of options here that are suggested. Substitute, I didn't talk about that move that much. I guess you could use Substitute, but like, I don't know what you're going to get out of it. Anything that's switching into Banette is probably something that's going to be taking the combination of Shadow Ball, HP fighting somewhat well, and is going to be willing to trade with the Banette, especially if it's your sole spin blocker. So I don't know if I would advise that. Taunt, Destiny Bond definitely make more sense. Will-O-Wisp is almost certainly the best of all the 4 options for that third move slot. That's what I would suggest anyway. Choice Band is an option. You don't really have great coverage with Banette, to be honest. So that's why you're seeing Double Edge as a suggested move there. Almost every Pokemon gets Double Edge, and I mean, I guess Banette could make use of it. It's strong enough, I guess, that you can finish off some frailer things with the mid-ground Double Edge. But yeah, I don't know if I would mess around with Choice Band. I also put Salac Berry there. There is a Salac set for Banette. I would probably suggest that you kind of just do what you're doing with the Choice Band set if you want to run that, though. I don't know why you really would want a Salac Berry. You're sitting at the same speed tier as Scizor, so for those of you who are like legit day ones and remember my Scizor video, one of the issues with Scizor is that with a +1 speed boost, it can't outspeed Jolteon or Aerodactyl. So, like, you don't really become the most potent endgame sweeper with a Salac Berry, and Banette doesn't even have quite the attack stat, nor does it have the synergy with reversal that Scizor has. So I struggle to see why you would want to use that, but I mean, I guess it makes you faster than like Starmie and Gengar, so it's not nothing. But I'm gonna suggest this set here. Now, I don't know if I would suggest this wholesale for every Banette. I mean, granted, I'm gonna be honest with you. I would suggest that you not use Banette as a Pokemon, at least not in ADVOU. But if you're going to, I wanted to try out this sort of spread here. So this is looking kind of similar to the Smogon spread, which I'll flick back to just really quick. With the 140 speed, some HP investment and attack. But I'm stealing from attack, and instead of investing in HP, I'm investing in special defense. With this attack investment, we're still going to OHKO offensive Starmie and Gengar. That would be defensive Gengar, offensive Gengar, utility Gang, all of the Gengar. We're going to 2-hit KO Def Me, Celebi sometimes. The bulkiest suggested Celebi set takes, I think, 50 minimum. So if we have Sand up, we will guarantee the 2-hit KO on Celebi. Otherwise, it's going to be a roll. And then Claydol. So that handles the spinners pretty well. The other spinner, or the other most common spinner, is Fortress, but Fortress has a really tough time with ghost types, particularly ones that are packing Will-O-Wisp. So this is kind of okay. Cloyster, I guess, could be an issue if that's running Rapid Spin, but that kind of commonly drops Rapid Spin as well, so it's not the best. HP Fighting is going to do 80% minimum to a 4 HP Tyranitar, 67% minimum to a 252 HP Tyranitar. We're pretty unlikely to 2-hit KO Blissey. I think it's, like, technically possible in Sand, but, like, I wouldn't play for it. And then we can 3-hit KO Utility Lax in the Sand. So that HP Fighting is not doing a lot for us. It's good at finishing off some weakened threats, but not necessarily good at breaking them. And then the defensive investment, you might think that the special defense is here for Pursuit, and it might help you out with like an Umbreon's Pursuit, maybe. But the idea with this special defense investment is actually that we're going to live 2 Surfs from a defensive Starmie, which commonly runs 40 special attack EVs. But that's only if we're outside of the Sand. If we're in Sand, it has rolls to get us with the 2-hit KO. So that's kind of tough. But it does mean that if you know that your opponent has a Def Me, or if you feel like they do, and that you think they're maybe gonna spin, then Banette can come in, block that spin. If they want to try to trade down with the Banette, you Shadow Ball them, you're going to 2-hit KO them, and they don't quite 2-hit KO you with a Surf. So they may just lose their spinner before you lose your spin blocker, which is big ups for us. It also helps with the Claydols that are trying to predict a Gengar switch in, because we will be taking not very much from the Psychic, and the follow-up Earthquake won't kill us either. And we're faster than pretty much all Claydol. I mean, not all Claydol. Some of them run really fast, but most of the common ones we will be faster than. Because we have 200 speed to outspeed Milotic. The reason why we care about outspeeding Milotic is so that if we catch it with a Will-O-Wisp on switch in, we can taunt it so that it's not able to refresh or recover. That means that Milotic is going to be getting chipped down, especially if we can get Sand on the field as well. So that can kind of help us to break through Milotic a little bit. It's also just nice to be able to be faster than most Skarmory sets, most Claydol sets, some Tyranitar sets, etc., etc. And even like Agility Metagross, we're usually faster than. And if it's a Leftovers variant and we get the Will-O-Wisp off on that, then that's really bad for that Metagross. But here's the team structure, and this team, I took it from a very good player who some of you should know from the Zetscored, Colin7, who is also kind of responsible for Jimothy Cool's Banette team, which looks quite similar to this. It's got Zapdos. I think it has Skarmory instead of Glalie as well. But I know that Jim has credited Zach PZ with that team. So I don't know if Zach PZ is actually the creator of the team or if Colin is. I tend to believe Colin, that he built the team. And Colin is the only person that I can find who has ever brought Banette to tournaments. So as far as I'm aware, he's the Banette guy. And this is what I'm calling Glalie Banette pre-slop. and it's pre-slop because this team shares a lot of similarities with the slop archetype that has been popularized by Fredazi. If you don't know what slop is, I will try to remember to leave a link to the write-up for it in the description of this video, but it's basically a form of offense that is trying to use Endeavor Swampert. For the most part, you don't technically need Endeavor Swampert, but it's one of the most common pillars of that archetype. To soften up things for a DD Salamence to win in the endgame. So, as you see here, we have another uncommon pick in Glalie as our spiker of choice. Why Glalie? Well, it's got a good matchup into Lead Salamence and Zapdos, which are two Pokemon that maybe give us some trouble. Particularly Mixments can be a pain in the ass for us because we don't have a great switch into Mixments. But Glalie can kind of help us in that department, force that Mixments to switch out, or those of you on ladder who thought that you were going to get away with Fire Blasting my Glalie, go ahead and eat crap because Ice Beam is super duper killing Salamence. So yeah, I don't know if I would suggest that to any of you who are watching who are leading with Salamence, gonna be playing against this Glalie lead team. Don't do it. Don't click the fire button. And then yeah, Zapdos is another Pokemon that can give us some trouble with switching in, particularly if it's HP Grass. We do have Jolteon, which is a decent check to Zapdos, but it's not the end-all be-all versus a Zapdos because we don't want to get Thunder Waved, and we can only take but so many HP grasses, especially when we set up the sand with Tyranitar. So, Glalie's handling two of the nastier Pokemon on lead for us. It's also got a pretty solid and fast Explosion, so we can get a Spike Up and then threaten to boom on some of the slower things that might want to switch in defensively. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't think Blissey would do that, but I mean, if it does, then get punished. We could also blow up on Tyranitar because we are faster than a max speed Tyranitar, which will stop it from being able to go for a Dragon Dance. It's not always the most nice button to click because we're not doing very much damage to the Tyranitar, but it can keep the momentum up for us and stop us from potentially losing the game. So we'll have to see if that came into play in any of my replays that I'm about to show you. Banette is pretty good at switching into Claydol, mostly if it's clicking Psychic. If it's potentially going to click Earthquake, like if you're in with Tyranitar, I don't think I would suggest switching to Banette because we don't take Earthquake that well. We can also dual Starmie if our Banette is at full health, and it's just good against Fortress, all the things that I've said previously. End Pert is going to soften up the Rock Resist for Tyranitar, or it wants to trade 1-for-1 with one of Salamence's defensive checks to allow that to win, because Salamence is our main win condition. But Jolteon also can play some cleanup for us depending on how the game goes, and it generates a lot of momentum with Baton Pass. So that's basically going to do it for the presentation section. We're going to switch up the music here, as cool as Dark Hill is, and as awesome a section as that is in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Sky. I'm not going to spoil it for those of you who have yet to play the peak that is that game, but that is a fantastic little sequence. But I'm going to show some love to an underappreciated Mystery Dungeon game. This is Gates to Infinity. Crags of Lament is the name of the track. I think also the name of the dungeon that it is featured in. So let's take it in. Gates to Infinity, good game. Stop hating on it. Here's our first opponent, who is Smoking Rocks, who is a fellow member of Zetscord. I know them to be one of the most prolific clip farmers of ADV. They're very, very commonly featured on Replay of the Week, which you should check out. This Friday, I will be doing a face reveal for Replay of the Week 21. And if you're interested in seeing what Tetrafolium's ugly face looks like, you better subscribe to Zets and see it for yourself. This Friday, it will be happening. But let's get into this. They are leading Cloister, and I'm leading Glalie. So that's kind of funny. Glalie's kind of like a bad Cloister. And Banette's kind of like a bad Gengar, so I'm just running the bad version of their team. They opt to go for a Thunderbolt, which does not do that much to my Banette. In fact, because I have so much Spadef investment, I would have lived another Thunderbolt, and I kill them with Shadow Ball. Now I get trapped with Dugtrio, but that's fine because it's an entry point for my Salamence, who I will be switching out to Jolteon against. Now, this is a play that maybe takes a little bit of explaining. What are the main switch-ins for Salamence? Most of the time, it's going to be a defensive water type, like Swampert. So I decide that I'm going to switch to Jolteon, because Jolteon is going to be the best at getting damage on Swampert for this team, with its HP Grass. But I managed to catch a Suicune, and Suicune really does not want to take a Thunderbolt here. So my opponent is going to have to reveal something that can switch into Jolteon, because they happen to go to a different defensive water than I was expecting in this Suicune. Obviously, Dugtrio is not a switch-in anymore. After the amount of spikes damage it's taken, it is guaranteed going to die to Hidden Power. So we're going to have to see a different sort of electric resist. And they happen to have one in Ampharos. So I guess maybe I'm not just the budget version of what they've got. I go for Baton Pass as they go for Focus Punch. So fortunately for me, I get to see what they're locking into, and I get to make the appropriate switch. Unfortunately for me, I get critically hit, so that's not great. I am going to go for an Earthquake, which should get some damage on Suicune, and I can just go to Jolteon, who is threatening the Suicune, even if it goes for a Calm Mind. At this stage, I can just rip the Thunderbolt, get some damage on Ampharos. It can't switch in forever. They reveal to not be locking into Focus Punch, so I'm going to go to Glalie, who is my most expendable team member. And then I would just go for Explosion. If they switch to Suicune or even Cloister, then great. I'm making a lot of progress. And if Ampharos was the only switch-in to Jolteon on this team, then Jolteon might just clean up. I will go to Swampert to see what their last is, and it is Metagross. I can just go for Hydro Pumps against this. Goes for Earthquake and knocks me into Salac range. I actually would have preferred to be a little bit above Salac range so I could go for a substitute. But it doesn't really matter. Dugtrio is going to come in and revenge, but my Jolteon is faster than Dugtrio. So I'm going to force a switch. I go for HP Grass. Cloister does not take that very well at all. I can go for literally whatever move I want. Well, probably shouldn't go for Baton Pass, but I will go for Thunderbolt because that will catch the Suicune switching in for even more damage. It's possible it could have lived on HP Grass, but Dugtrio comes in, not able to do much, and Suicune will also perish to the Jolteon. So good work, Jolteon, for being able to basically kill, it killed 3 Mons on the team. It could have killed 5, which is crazy. Banette did, that's not really what it's designed to do, being the Gengar killer, but my opponent decided to risk the Gengar, and I took it, so let's go. Now we're up against my tiny Kakuna, which I'll assure you that my Kakuna is quite small. So here's Glalie versus lead Tyranitar. This is the one lead that I'm not exactly sure what I should be doing with the Glalie. I've been switching to Swampert, which might not be correct, but maybe it's just better to get the spike, but I don't know. it does get some damage on my Swampert, and I do want my Swampert to end up at low HP at some point so I can get really, really powerful Endeavors off. But as you'll know if you listen to what Ferdazi has to say about Slop and how to use Endeavor Swampert, you want to click the water move as much as possible. There are a lot of times where this lead Tyranitar switches to Skarmory, and Hydro Pump is going to 3-hit KO Skarmory, which can limit the amount of spikes that they are able to get. Now, it didn't really work out for me because they went to Celebi and I missed anyway, but that's okay. I will go to Banette here, which is probably not the right play because they just rip the Hydro Pump and do 69% to my Banette, which is not nice. I don't know why you would even suggest that, dear viewer who said nice right there. I don't really want to sack my Banette here, so I'm going to go back to Glalie, who takes an Ice Beam very, very well. I'm down to 26%, and they go for Thunderbolt as I go for Explosion, so Glalie was the better spin blocker on this day. They go to Salamence. I don't have a good switch into Mixment, so I think I'm going to sack my spin blocker now that the spinner is gone. I'll just take my one spike. And you know what? We can say that Banette did nothing that game. But it kind of did two things for us. It stopped the Starmie from being able to spin. Because if they had clicked spin instead of Hydro Pump there, then they wouldn't have been able to get rid of the hazard, right? Because Banette switched in. It also set up so that we could get a Tyranitar entry because the -1 Salamence is definitely not killing us with Brick Break. So we can simply just Dragon Dance. They reveal the Skarmory now. I would suggest maybe, and this is a bad habit of mine as well, that this Skarmory has to find an earlier entry. Like, that being the 5th revealed Pokemon is not usually what you want for your Skarmory. And I get a flinch there, which is very lucky. I force that Skarmory to roar. It gets me into Jolteon, which is perfect, although all of the Pokemon on my team could have stopped that Skarmory from being able to spin. Or spike, I should say. I go for a Baton Pass, anticipating that my opponent would not want to sack their Skarmory just yet. And I will go to Salamence and just click HP Flying to do a lot of damage to the Celebi. Mostly I was trying to catch this Salamence switching in. And that's what I'm doing with this switch to Jolteon as well. But they managed to go to Skarmory, so I can just go for a Thunderbolt and kill their Skarmory off. Why did they not switch or do something? I think they thought I was going to Baton Pass. But with this Celebi so low now, there's not really a reason for me to not Thunderbolt. And then this Salamence is pretty threatening for me still, so I am going to take the Thunderbolt and trade. Jolteon should not die to any one hit from a Mixments, so that's really good for me. And now Salamence is gone, so this game is kind of opened up for my Salamence to maybe win. Or even my Swampert. I will go for a substitute in case this Celebi wants to go for a Leech Seed. Or even if they go for a Recover, I can pass to my Salamence and start setting up to win the game. Though they managed to get into Tyranitar, I will switch to Salamence to stop this Tyranitar from being able to get very many boosts. Then I'm going to switch to Swampert, who takes a critical hit Rock Slide there. That's not good for me. Now I'm in Earthquake range. So I'm going to switch back to Salamence to cycle another Intimidate. They're going to Dragon Dance again, but I have Brick Break, so see you, Tyranitar. And last mon is Metagross. So Agility Metagross can maybe win this game. And they do happen to be Agility Metagross. They're going to have to do something that does a lot of damage to my Salamence, though. Because I have quite a bit of HP investment, and they're dead. So unlike the Slop suggestion for Salamence, I actually have max attack with like the standard sort of HP investment. I think that Ferdazi tends to prefer a lot of special defense investment and even cutting into your attack to do it. I don't know if this team is super duper weak to Gengar and warrants that. Maybe it does, and you can certainly experiment with that yourself. But I kind of chose to keep it a little more simple. So you do you, whatever you think is right. And I think that HP investment did help with that Rock Slide. I think I still probably lived even if I didn't have it, but it's a little bit of a safety net there. All right, now we're up against Zen F25, who, all right, Zet's pointed this out to me, and I don't think I'd noticed this for the longest time. Do you see this guy, the cue ball here, the avatar of this opponent who's sitting at the ripe old elo of 1361? On the back of the jacket, that is a Gyarados on there. I didn't know that for the longest time. I kind of just assumed it was like a whatever logo, but Zet's pointed it out to me, and like now I can't unsee it. So all of you will be cursed with that knowledge now. I'm gonna switch my Glalie out against a lead Swampert or Tyranitar. They always click that Rock Slide. How about that? Oh, and this is the game that tells you should just be clicking Hydro Pump there, because Skarmory does like to switch into Swampert in some cases. So they're gonna get spikes. I Hydro Pump for 44, pretty good damage, but they can simply get another layer of spikes if they so choose. I am gonna get behind a substitute though to kind of pressure this Skarmory into clicking Roar rather than getting a second spike. It also gets my Swampert a little bit lower so I can start Endeavoring later. And I managed to get Roared into Jolteon, so very good luck for me with getting the Jolteon in. I'm going to Baton Pass and actually get to Swampert. Now what this does is it punishes the Protect. Protect goes off, and I managed to switch to something on my team that will threaten to kill the Skarmory, in this case Swampert. And they can't go for Protect again without having a chance to fail, which allows me to get the Hydro Pump kill on the Skarmory. Now, my only Rock Resist is very low, and this is a Rock Spam team, so that's not good. I go to Tyranitar, anticipating that my opponent will click Double Edge. Why did I not go to Banette? I don't know. I guess Tyranitar is going to threaten to do some more damage to whatever their switch-in is, and they go to a Monopert, so this is looking like El Clasico to me. They go for Toxic, which is definitely the wrong play into Tyranitar, especially one that has revealed to not have leftovers. So they kind of just take all that Earthquake damage for no reason. I will use this as an opportunity to get my Glalie in and start getting the spikes up. They Toxic my Glalie, who also has Lumberry, so that's really bad. Really bad luck for my opponent, I guess. They go for another Toxic, and I'm thinking to myself, I mean, I can just get the third layer up. They are going to Surf me, though, and I'm taking a lot of damage here. They can go for Protect. I'll go for Ice Beam. I could have went for Explosion. It doesn't really matter. I'm super dead with the Glalie here. But Ice Beam could have gotten a freeze potentially if they wanted to switch into something else. I will just go to Jolteon and take my HP Grass kill. They're going to go to Tyranitar, which is pretty sensible. I'm going to Baton Pass, and I see that they are locking into Focus Punch. So this is a BKC Tar. I should be able to live a -1 Rock Slide from here, so I'm going to go for a Dragon Dance. They go to Zapdos. I think Zapdos can live this Rock Slide, but I managed to get a critical hit, so that's really, really good for me. And then they go to Aerodactyl, who, well, I mean, that's not beating a +1 Mence. But nor is this Tyranitar. I think in this version of the game, I actually have Earthquake instead of Brick Break, which is, I think, fine. You can kind of do whatever you want. HP Flying should kill Gengar, but I go for Rock Slide because you never know. Maybe it's a impish Gengar who has max defense, and I need to get a I flinch to make progress in the game. But now that my Salamence is burned, I'm like, oh no, it's completely useless now. I can't even kill the Gengar. So I'll switch to Swampert. And, oh no, I get Giga Drained. And then Banette can come in, thankfully. It's the only Pokemon who could have won the game from this position here. As they go for a Will-O-Wisp, and I get a Shadow Ball off and still kill the Gengar, because Banette is a really, really good Pokemon. Yeah, no, Banette really was not necessary that game. I could have just clicked HP Fly and won. But we have to throw a little bit for the content, all right? Banette won that game. It was the last Pokemon revealed. All right, now we're getting on to the last game here, and Celia can't. Come on, man. What are you doing? I am just going to get a spike off. Magneton comes in, and they click HP Fire. Now, here's the thing about HP Fire. Against a Pokemon where HP Fire is super effective and Thunderbolt is neutrally effective, Thunderbolt does slightly more damage. So, they go for HP Fire and leave my Glalie on 2%. Had they went for Thunderbolt, they would have been slightly more likely to get the roll to kill my Glalie. They also would have had a chance to get a paralysis as well. So, Celia can't. Do not stay in with your Ments against Glalie. And click Thunderbolt instead of HP Fire, please, and thank you. Unless you're Charcoal, then obviously that does more damage. But, yeah. And then Magnet as well. That's not even factoring in the Magnet boost. Magnet was definitely going to make you do more damage. So in fact, I think you were pretty likely to get the kill if you had went for Thunderbolt. So you made the play to lose your lead and let me get 2 spikes. So if you're watching, don't make that mistake again. I can simply get my Tyranitar in, who will be Dragon Dancing. They reveal their Swampert, and this is exactly what you want to see for a slop team. Like this is a Swampert coming in on Tyranitar. This manages, in fact, to be a offensive Swampert, so I'm able to get the kill with 2 Earthquakes there. That crit probably didn't matter. Maybe it did. I certainly had a roll to get there without the crit. And then I will reveal Jolteon as the Suicune trades down with my Tyranitar. They're going to sack the Suicune. And then get in Snorlax, who is threatening to hit me with a Body Slam. So I will go Baton Pass to Banette. They go for Curse. I can go for a Will-O-Wisp, though. And they go for Shadow Ball, which does 75% to my Banette because I have no investment whatsoever. And wow, that did a lot. But I'll go for HP Fighting, and I get a critical hit. That definitely mattered. And yes, bye-bye Snorlax. Magneton should be faster than my Banette, so I'm going to switch out. I don't know what their last is. Maybe Banette makes progress. But Endeavor Swampert definitely makes progress versus this Magneton. And then last mon for them, I don't know exactly what it would be. It probably is like Heracross. This looks like blue offense. Although I think the Suicune set on blue offense is a little different. I don't think it has Surf. I think it has Hydro Pump. But needless to say, Swampert was going to clean up that game for us. And Banette, it did so well. It burned and then crit and killed a Snorlax. You don't see it do that every day, folks. So props to Banette, the spookiest Pokemon in ADV, for really earning its keep here. No, Banette's so bad. Don't use it. Do not. It's terrible. Just use Dusclops. Just use Mischievous. Do anything other than using Banette. But I don't know. It's kind of funny, at least. And that's all I really have to say. So thank you all for watching. Please go check out my good buddy Zetz at PokeZetz on YouTube. To see Replay of the Week 21. It's going to be great. And if you're not in Zetzcord already, please comment down below and I will send you a link. So, yeah, I hope to see you there.